External media. Do not forget to share, like, and subscribe always.
Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Tina, and today I'll be bringing you what was in the meeting at Parliament. As you can see, that is the president of the National Unity Platform, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, arriving at the Parliament of Uganda to join the rest of the opposition party leaders. And he's going to be welcomed by none other than Joel Senyonyi, the leader of opposition, and Louis Lubonge, the Secretary General of National Unity Platform. Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu came with Nubian Lee. So together, the four of them are taking their way to the chambers to also join other leaders and to launch the alternative budget priorities under the theme combating corruption. That will be the topic of discussion, and please do not forget to share, like, and subscribe, and also press the notification bell for new uploads. My dear family, if you please watch my video, kindly like the video. Please give me that like, thumbs up. I'm so grateful. Do not forget to give me the thumbs up, please. I'm begging you. So as you can see, the entire crew is walking to the chambers to meet the other leaders so that they kickstart the meeting that is supposed to be held today. As you can see, they're at the chambers at the Parliament of Uganda. So I'm going to leave you with the video. See you on the next one. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.
That's that capacity. I talk about the others later. The other for that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great responsibility, obligation, and deep commitment to our nation that we present the alternative budget priorities for the financial year 2025-2026. The alternative budget priorities reflect the needs, aspirations, and realities faced by the people of Uganda. This year's alternative budget priorities were born out of a consultative process. We reached out to all opposition political parties, plus some civil society organizations, to share their input. All those who gave us feedback on the same. The past year has been yet another chapter in the government's long history of economic mismanagement. Ugandans are struggling to afford basic needs, while those in power prioritize personal wealth accumulation over public service. The government's reckless spending on fraudulent projects while neglecting essential services is a betrayal of the social contract they have with the people of Uganda. Let us consider the Oluvunganya Specialized Hospital project. This is a project which is a clear example of organized corruption, in my very considered opinion. The government has spent billions of taxpayers' money on this project, yet there is no clear deadline on when it will open. At the same time, public hospitals across the country lack funding and cannot even provide basic care. Because of this, many Ugandans are forced to either seek treatment overseas or to suffer in poorly equipped health facilities across the country. The situation is no different for companies like Day Biopharma Limited, Atiak Sugar, Rocco Construction Limited, and Inspire Coffee Factory, which have benefited from dubious state funding without clear accountability mechanisms. These projects, ladies and gentlemen, have become channels for siphoning public funds, further entrenching a kleptocratic system that prioritizes elite interests over national development. Our alternative budget priority areas, ladies and gentlemen, are grounded in the principles of fiscal responsibility and public accountability. We are committed to realigning Uganda's financial priorities to serve the people of Uganda. And that's specifically why we are bothered about some of these very old projects that I've just mentioned about. In the past couple of months, as the opposition, we've been going to these various projects, Atiak Sugar, Day Biopharma, Inspire Coffee Africa, Rocco Construction Limited. Billions of shillings have been injected into these projects, and not much is happening. What's even more problematic is that government gives taxpayers money to these projects. There's no memorandum of understanding at all. Then government says we are buying shares in these companies. When you ask what's the value, what's the worth of this company, that has not been ascertained. So that shows you the confusion within which government operates. And whenever we mention these things on the floor, I've had people like the Honorable Nabanja say we are making government look bad. Forgetting that government looks bad on its own accord. Ladies and gentlemen, the economic outlook for the 2025-2026 financial year remains uncertain. Uganda's total budget has been projected at 71.9 trillion shillings. Persistent fiscal indiscipline, excessive borrowing, and corruption have put immense pressure on our economy. The high cost of debt servicing, which consumes over 30% of our budget, has left little room for investment in critical sectors. Inflation remains a huge concern, with rising prices of essential commodities such as food, fuel, and healthcare. Meanwhile, revenue collection remains suboptimal due to inefficiencies in tax administration, revenue leakages, and inadequate enforcement of tax policies. Our people deserve a budget that works for them, not one that burdens them with unnecessary taxes and then poor service delivery. It's one thing for you to tax the population. It's another for that tax money to be of value to the people of Uganda. As I'm sure many of you know, there are countries where the citizen repay hefty sums in tax, but they know that when they go to hospital, they'll get good quality medication, courtesy of the government. When they take their children to public schools, they'll attain quality education. The infrastructure is worked on. So the taxpayer knows that when I pay heavily in tax, what is left is really for me. That's not the case for Ugandans. You'll pay heavily in tax, but when you're sick, you'll have to go to private facility for those that can afford, because there's not much in the public ones. You'll have to take your child to a good school for those that can afford, because the UPE schools are tenement structures about to collapse. You see the state of our roads. So we are saying there must be value for taxpayers' money. Let me talk a bit about some key sectoral priorities. And ladies and gentlemen, we have availed two booklets to you. One is a compendium of our alternative budget priority areas, highlighting what we do propose, what we would do had we been the ones in power. And like I said, this has been a consultative process to see to it that we get the views of different political parties, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders, so that it's not just our budget, but it is reflective of the people of Uganda. I want to encourage us to find time and read those books and even critique them. It's important that we keep getting feedback. Yes, we did consult, but it's important that as we keep going, you look at what is it that we are proposing. Many times you hear people say, the opposition just opposes. No, that's not the kind of opposition we want to be. We want to be a government in waiting, a proper government in waiting that offers credible alternatives. So I'd like to encourage us, please read. So for those that keep saying we just oppose, find time and read. And I know those people are not in this room, they're out there. So I'm encouraging them, find this work and read it. And we're going to share it on social media. We'll have those links so that people can read and know what it is that we are about. But let me share a few sectoral highlighted areas here. The other booklet, of course, is my address for today that captures a couple of those things. One, finance, planning and economic development sector. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is responsible for mobilizing financial resources, regulating public expenditure, and ensuring sound financial management. However, Uganda faces significant fiscal challenges, including a rising public debt burden, inefficient budget execution, and financial leakages through corruption and mismanagement. Uganda's debt servicing obligations consume a substantial portion of our national budget, with 21.61 trillion shillings allocated to treasury operations in financial year 2025-2026. Commitment fees on unused loans alone have cost the country 469.8 billion shillings. Imagine that. between financial year 2018-2019 and 2023-2024. That's a lot of money that is thrown down the drain. Frequent supplementary budgets totaling 6.54 trillion in the current fiscal year alone. And all of this financial planning and cash flow constraints. Here is what we must do regarding this particular sector. One, we must improve public debt management to reduce excessive borrowing and commitment fees. That's what we are saying as a position. Two, we've got to strengthen budget discipline by eliminating unnecessary supplementary budgets. You see, supplementary budgets are a sign of poor planning or no planning at all. Because if you plan, your supplementaries should only be about the unforeseeables. You know that maybe a tragedy happens, like we are seeing now. Floods in different parts of the country, here in Kampala, in Kasese, previously we had a challenge in Bududa and elsewhere. That's when the supplementary budget makes sense. But sometimes they bring to us a supplementary budget, including salaries for civil servants. That's ridiculous. How do you not plan for salaries of people that you have as part of your staff? And then that has to come through a supplementary budget. This drama has got to stop. We've got to enhance domestic revenue mobilization by closing tax loopholes and enforcing compliance in high-value sectors like gold mining. While every Ugandan pays their fair share of tax, there are people who don't pay taxes in this country. Ordinary people that sell, little things in their shops downtown, you'll see KCCA running after them to pay tax. You'll see shops being closed, that they've got to pay tax. But people who mine gold and they are raking in billions upon billions of shillings, they're not paying taxes. And we are wondering why. When I see chairperson of COSASE, one of the reports we tabled, that was the URL report, we were castigating this particular aspect, saying it is problematic. And I remember that time, the figure was 700 something billion. It keeps growing. Why do these people not pay taxes? The answer is because these are the powerful people in this country who are operating in this trade. They'll exempt themselves while everybody else does pay tax. This has got to change. There's got to be equity. We've got to combat corruption by fully implementing anti-graft measures and holding accountable those responsible for financial mismanagement. Our theme for this year's alternative budget priorities is combating corruption the effective way to sure service delivery. I believe that with all of my heart. For us to have effective service delivery in this country, one of the things we need to tackle is corruption. We lose over 10 trillion shillings per year to corruption. That's about a third of what URA collects. Meantime, they don't even hit their targets. Just think about how many hospitals that money can build. How many roads across the country that 10 plus trillion shillings can fix and build. How many schools? How many factories? We have a lot of unemployment in this country. How much can that money do? So that's why we are saying that combating corruption is sure way to effective service delivery. That's the only way. Because even that money which is available for service delivery is stolen. We've got to improve budget transparency and public financial management systems to ensure effective resource allocation. Let me talk a bit about health. Uganda's health sector faces significant challenges, including underfunding. Only 6.1% of the national budget is availed. Of course, there is inadequate infrastructure under the same and shortages of health workers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one doctor per 25,000 people. No wonder people die unnecessarily. We've got stockouts of essential medicines, and that affects 40% of health facilities, while maternal mortality remains high at 336 deaths per 100,000 live births. Non-communicable diseases are rising, accounting for 33% of hospital admissions. And mental health services are severely underfunded, with 75% of patients untreated. Emergency response systems are weak, with only one ambulance per 200,000 people. Imagine that. This government, in its previous manifestos, promised the country an ambulance system across the country. But today, it is members of parliament that have got to buy ambulances. Why? Because you have an absentee government. Why should that be your role as a member of parliament? That you buy an ambulance and take care of that health situation. Government has got to do that. And that's what we are saying we would do had we been in power. We propose the following actions. One, we've got to eliminate medicine shortages by partnering with local pharmaceutical manufacturers. And that money can be availed. We've got to increase funding for primary health care through a 5% levy on luxury goods. This is doable. We've got to reduce maternal mortality by deploying 100 mobile maternal health clinics in rural areas so that our mothers stop dying while trying to bring forth life. We've got to address health worker shortages. And this can be done severally. One, offering, for example, 1,000 scholarships for medical and nursing students. It is doable. We've got to combat non-communicable diseases through nationwide screening. And we can do this in even 500 health centers. We've got to strengthen emergency response by procuring, at the bare minimum, 200 ambulances and 1,000 responders. This is doable. We've got to expand mental health services by training at least 500 community health workers and establishing 100 mental health units today. This is a critical challenge in our country, ladies and gentlemen. And I know sometimes when you think about mental health, you're thinking of, as people refer to it, mad people. No, people are struggling. We need to take care of this. We need to implement enhanced mosquito control programs to complement ongoing malaria control efforts. There's no reason why in 2025, if you have a serious government in place. Let me talk about Kampala Capital City Authority. The Omlord is here. And we also have our shadow minister in charge of Kampala, the Honorable Balimwezo Ronald Subuga. Ladies and gentlemen, Kampala faces a severe strain from rapid urbanization, with rural urban migration and population growth overwhelming the available infrastructure and services. The city grapples with a poor road network, chronic flooding due to inadequate drainage. Recently, we lost nearly 10 people in a one-day's flooding alone in Kampala here. Uncollected solid waste causing health hazards and insufficient housing and social amenities. Budget constraints limit KCCA's ability to address these issues, compromising education, healthcare, and economic productivity. Government said it was taking over the administration of Kampala, and they said they're going to do a good job. So they are in charge, literally. We have political leaders, and I've had some ministers say, but well, the opposition is the one that is in charge of the leadership of Kampala, from the mayor, members of parliament, division mayors, councillors, and so on. But who administers the city? Who really? You see the Lord Mayor there, assuming there was flooding in his area, he would also have to make a call to the technical wing and plead, please come and fix this issue. And it might take days on end for that to happen. So as government, you said you are taking over to fix this issue. You have failed miserably, as is expected. We've got to improve urban planning and zoning to curb haphazard development. We've got to expand and upgrade road infrastructure to reduce congestion. Modernize waste management systems, including recycling initiatives. There's no reason why garbage should be killing people in this day and age. Just think about it. That a heap of garbage, Kasasio, kills people in this day and age. We are very unserious as a country. And yet we know what to do. We've got to rehabilitate drainage systems to prevent flooding. We don't know who issues these permits and approvals. Buildings keep coming up every single day. Drainage is not taken care of. We've got to invest in social services such as education and healthcare facilities, and also promote affordable housing projects to address the question of slums. Many of our ordinary folks live in a very debilitating state. When you go to some of those slum areas, no wonder they are always sick with one ailment after another. and it is fixable if you are committed as a government. That's what we would do. Of course, it seems to be rocket science to the people in charge currently. Let me talk a bit about presidential affairs. The office of the presidency faces systemic governance challenges, including financial indiscipline. 488% budget increments for classified expenditures. Let me repeat that. 488% budget increments for classified expenditures. Now, every country ought to have a classified budget, but ours is ridiculously unexplainable. It keeps growing by the day, and you cannot justify it. And that's why we're saying that's a channel of corruption. Money for the people in charge. Because even when we are to go at war or to involve ourselves in military operations, for example, UPDF is in Sudan, South Sudan. They had to come for a separate budget for that. So these huge trillions in classified, what exactly do they do? It does not make sense because there is a budget for defense that caters for all of these different things. And you see, the challenge about classified budgets is you and I don't get to scrutinize them. And that's a cover they use to steal taxpayers' money. This nonsense has got to stop, ladies and gentlemen. That's the only way we can have money for effective service delivery. Because government keeps crying and saying, well, there is no money. There is money. There is money, but it is put in the wrong places. We've got bloated administrative structures with duplicated agencies, wasteful expenses on RDCs and their multiple deputies. You have an RDC, a deputy RDC, assistant RDC, and a plethora of structures therein. Poor budget performance with irregular supplementary allocations and persistent corruption, despite anti-graft public trust and fiscal responsibility. These are some of the things we propose to deal with these issues. We've got to streamline the presidency's administrative functions to eliminate redundancy. There are many people that are hired therein, friends, relatives, in-laws, outlaws of the president. You find them somewhere in the structure there. Doing what? Nothing. And yet they are earning plenty of money. We've got to stop this. We've got to reduce wasteful expenditure on redundant offices that are duplicated, such as RDCs, deputy RDCs, assistant RDCs. We've talked about this. We've got to implement transparent financial management systems for classified expenditure. Yes, it is classified, but one, let it be justifiable. And two, let it make sense. There's got to be a form of accountability in that regard. Foreign affairs. Uganda lacks a coherent foreign policy with outdated mission charters that have been unchanged since 2014. Imagine that. And weak consular services. Thousands of migrant workers, especially in the Middle East, face exploitation, confiscated passports, and unpaid wages with minimal embassy support. Unstructured labor agreements hinder labor export growth. We implore that this is done. One, that we develop a comprehensive and updated foreign policy framework. And you find our alternative in that big compendium. Do find time and read it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to expand and modernize consular services to offer better support to Ugandans abroad. We've got to establish enforceable labor agreements to protect migrant workers. These are Ugandans, even when they're out of this country. Why should we abandon them? And we've got to rationalize diplomatic missions to optimize costs and impact. Justice and constitutional affairs. I'm just giving a summary of some of the sectors that are in that big compendium. You'll find time and read the others. Uganda's justice system faces a deep crisis marked by weak legal frameworks, systemic human rights violations, limited access to justice, high crime rate, and the collapse of the rule of law. The government has deliberately undermined judicial independence, leading to a constitutional crisis. Corruption remains rampant with low recovery of stolen public funds, while security structures fail to protect citizens. These failures, ladies and gentlemen, threaten social stability and economic progress. This is what we must do. One, strengthen judicial independence by increasing its funding and reducing executive interference. You'll hear Mr. Museveni say, you judges will not allow you to take us back to the old days and so on. What happened to independence? Let them operate as should be. We've got to expand legal aid programs to ensure access to justice for all citizens, and also enforce anti-corruption measures to hold officials accountable. Then enhance human rights protections through improved monitoring and enforcement mechanisms. Science and technology sector. The science, technology and innovation sector in Uganda faces significant challenges, including widespread corruption and mismanagement of funds, as evidenced by the lack of transparency in projects like Kira Motors, which was famed as the thing that is going to ameliorate Uganda. There's others like Banana Industrial Research Development Center. Many initiatives, such as Day Biopharma, received billions of shillings before proper agreements were in place, leading to wastage of taxpayer money. This Day Biopharma was given over 723 billion shillings. No agreement. This is a private entity. These are the fellows who promised us a COVID vaccine, you remember? They came huffing and puffing and saying, we have got the cure. COVID came and went. The cure never surfaced. When we visited the entity, they told us the following month, we are going to begin producing medicines. It's now over 6 months, there's nothing happening there. And they're asking for more money. Ridiculous. And all of this is taxpayer money. There's no memorandum of understanding between government and this entity, a private entity. Government said they are buying shares. We asked, what's the worth? We asked the MD of this entity, what's your worth as a company? And he was gambling. The government is saying we are buying stock. What stock are you buying? You know, when we say we have got a ridiculous government, some people think we are saying that for political, I don't know, excitement. But it's good when you look at some of the figures. That's how you know how ridiculous things are. Now, this Kira Motors, they promised to be producing 2,500 buses annually. The last we checked, they were producing 39. We don't even know where those 39 are. But they keep coming with the budget to Parliament. When we say, no, this money here is what we should put in healthcare, our colleagues on the other side, they say, no, you people are against development. We need to establish a national science technology law to regulate intellectual property and innovation commercialization. We've got to implement stronger accountability measures for government-funded projects. Let me talk a bit about the public sector. Uganda's public service faces systemic crises, not just a crisis, but crises, plural, including severe brain drain due to uncompetitive salaries, corruption-ridden district service commissions selling jobs to unqualified candidates, and a bloated bureaucracy with 295,000 unfilled positions. The sector suffers from discriminatory remuneration, outdated manual systems, causing pension delays, and a grossly, and this might annoy some of you, a grossly oversized parliament. Colleagues, we are 529 members of parliament for 46 million people. That's not right. I can see some of you looking at me angrily, but it's the reality. It is the reality. You have a parliament this huge. When we all show up in parliament, we actually don't have where to sit. People stand, others sit on other people's laps, and we are there. They've been promising to complete the new chambers. I think the initial completion date was 2019. We are in 2025. Every morning as I climb to go to my office, I hear people knocking things with hammers. But we don't know what progress is happening there. But they will knock to make you think they're doing some work. That is Rocco, by the way, which was given taxpayer money. And there's nothing happening there. But I'll tell you what I think. Parliament spends billions of shillings to rent offices for all of us as MPs, all staff, Kingdom Kampala, Development House, and so on. Billions of shillings. Could it be that the owners of these facilities are probably in one way or another engineering the delay of our chambers? Because for as long as our chambers are complete, Parliament will not be spending billions of shillings to hire offices for MPs and staff. No. But we are in 2025 and there's not much happening there. Your guess is as good as mine, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, in addition to that, we have got dozens upon dozens of presidential advisors, many of whom never meet him at all. You normally see them saying, now that I've got you at this function, let me tell you what I have to tell you. And a few, when he meets them, he's the one advising them. These things have got to change, ladies and gentlemen. Got nearly 100 ministers. Whenever we need them in Parliament to respond to critical issues, they are absent. But they are there. See some ridiculous fellows. And I'm saying ridiculous fellows because of the way they talk and operate. And they are there also, honorable minister. This drama has got to change if we want to have a better country. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to establish a National Salaries Review Commission to ensure fair and competitive pay for public servants. That's something that has got to happen. So that even the salary of members of Parliament is determined by this same commission. And everybody else. That's how you grow a country. Today you have science teachers earning 3 or nearly 4 times what their ex-colleagues are earning. But they're teaching the same schedules, the same duration, they sit in the same staff room. And you're saying you want to prop up sciences, but as you're doing that, schools don't have laboratories. Some of these children, they encounter burettes, test tubes, Bunsen burners, and all these other reagents for the first time in their final exam. But you say you're promoting sciences. I don't know what's wrong with us. We've got to digitize payroll and pension systems to reduce fraud and delays. And then reduce redundant government agencies to improve efficiency. And strengthen anti-corruption measures in hiring processes. You know that people in this country are hired to very high offices without qualifications. But because they are known by somebody who knows another, they get into those offices. And when that company is making losses year after year, you wonder why. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to realize why. Let me talk a bit about defense. The defense sector in Uganda faces significant challenges, including porous borders that facilitate illegal arms trafficking and terrorist infiltration. Poor accountability in budget allocations with opaque classified expenditures that I talked about, and inadequate welfare for UPDF soldiers, such as low pay, poor housing, and under-equipped medical facilities. These foot soldiers and colleagues, I want to implore you to feel sorry for them and for us to fight to see that they get what they deserve. Police officers, soldiers, prison staff, especially the junior ones, they earn too little. And then they live like refugees in their own countries. It's a problem that has got to be fixed. Maybe that's why they behave the way they do behave. Some of them have got mental health issues. The fellow left home, there is no food. The children are sent away for school fees. Maybe that's why they treat us the way they do. So they're beating an opposition leader or a journalist for that matter. And you wonder, where is this person's anger emanating from? Now you know. And I'm not justifying anything, by the way. But I'm only trying to be logical as a leader. That you don't expect people who live this way, who are treated this way, they'll find, because they will not go after their bosses. They'll come after the population because they're angry and hungry. We've got to change this as a country. We have got the UPDFs in discipline, rather discipline and professionalism, that are undermined by politicization and lawful civilian trials in military courts. Very problematic issue. Even after the Supreme Court says The court martial should not try civilians. We have several of these, our young people that are still held in jail. The likes of Yasin, Bajeti, Sheriff Kalanzi, Anthony Agaba, also known as Bobby Young, and several others. They're still there. And then we say we have got rule of law. We've got to address these issues, colleagues, for us to have the kind of country that we will cherish. Of course, is unchecked foreign deployments without parliamentary sanction. They deployed the UPDF in South Sudan and then came to parliament belatedly. And even the speaker, which I found problematic, the speaker said, no, we're not going to debate this issue because it's of huge diplomatic concern. So why are we there as parliament? Why? Because they said, no, this one, pass it immediately and then adjourn the house and run away. Why are we then present? So that shows you that there's something fishy about some of these engagements. Of course, there are other concerns, human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings and suppression of dissent, which further erode public trust. Additionally, this sector, defense, suffers from redundant funding, ghost soldiers on payrolls, and militarization of civilian roles, contradicting constitutional mandates for a non-partisan army. We strongly urge, one, we've got to improve welfare for UPDF personnel, including salaries, housing, and healthcare. We've got to enhance accountability for defense expenditures, particularly classified budgets. Then strengthen border security to prevent illegal arms trafficking, and improve training and equipment for national security forces. Let me talk about agriculture, which is a favorite for Madame Agnes Chirabo. She's very passionate about that, and rightly so. Government has not prioritized public spending on the agricultural sector, despite the AU Cap Malabo 2014 and the recent 2025 Kampala declarations for at least 10% allocation of the national budget to this sector. Budget allocation to the sector has stagnated at less than 3% of the national budget, with a component of more than 50% as external finance. The sectoral growth rate is at 3.8% out of the recommended 6%. About 40% of the agricultural processing factories countrywide are non-functional, but they tell us they are factories. With our tea and coffee factories operating capacity at only about 50%. So instead of bolstering that, they're now putting up new ones which are being given free taxpayers' money. Additionally, farmers are still faced with the challenge of agricultural extension and advisory services. Access to agriculture, credit and finance is problematic, that's at about 12%. The high cost of agricultural inputs and the influx of counterfeits, that's at 30%. The crisis in the fisheries subsector. Fishermen are always hounded, beaten, killed because of trying to eke out a living. Limited progress on access to water for agricultural production. Deteriorating prices of agricultural products on the world market, among others. Many Ugandans are malnourished. If you read reports from entities like Food Rights Alliance, many of our young people are malnourished. And yet, Uganda has got nearly half of all the arable land in East Africa. That's land suitable for agriculture. Nearly half of all the arable land in East Africa is here in Uganda. But we have people starving. This is what we must do. One, adhere to the implementation of the National Agricultural Finance Policy to align it with the Malabo 2014 and Kampala CAP 2025 declarations, and commitment to align with NDP4 targets. We've got to revamp the National Seed Company, expedite the National Agricultural Extension Strategy, finalize the National Irrigation Master Plan, and then urgently operationalize the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act of 2022. There's the tourism sector. Tourism has got a lot of potential in this our country, but it is neglected. Limited funding happening there. The infrastructure leading to some of these game parks is in a sorry state. I remember there's a time some tourists got stuck on the road for a day and a half and the minister, the then Minister of State for Tourism, said that that's part of the tourism experience for them to see what a third world country is like. So these guys were stuck for nearly 2 days trying to push their car because they took off time from their country for maybe 4 days to come and spend some dollars here in Uganda. But for 2 days they're stuck on the road. And the one Chiwanda Sumbi, who was the Minister of State for Tourism, then said that's part of the tourism experience. Those are Museveni's ministers. Let me talk about trade, industry and cooperative sector. Maybe I'll let you read that in the booklets we have availed to you. There's water and environment sector, which is also very critical. I'll encourage us to read so that I don't take too long here. Look at the proposals that we have there really. Strengthening enforcement of environmental protection laws, investing in reforestation and wetland restoration programs, improving access to clean water, particularly in rural areas. Many Ugandans today don't have access to clean water. Enhancing waste management infrastructure to reduce pollution. There's the energy sector. And we are saying we've got to expand rural electrification through off-grid solar and mini-grid solutions. Only about 30% of our country is connected to the national grid. 70% are in darkness. I know it's difficult for you here in Kampala to believe that 70% of our country is not connected to the national grid. These are things that we need to deal with. There's the water and transport sector. And I'll urge us to read that component too. Lands, housing and urban sector. Critical concerns there. Our shadow minister is always talking about them. Gender, labor and social development. Let me talk about internal affairs. The internal affairs sector in Uganda faces key challenges, including underfunding for security and law enforcement, inadequate police infrastructure, corruption, and human rights concerns. Other issues include slow service delivery in immigration and national identification processes, risky cybercrime, and congestion in correctional facilities due to case backlog and limited rehabilitation programs. We've got to do this. One, increase funding for recruitment, training and equipping the police force to improve security and public trust. Many of you know that when you have a challenge and you call on police to come to your aid, they will struggle to come because you find there's one car for I don't know how many sub-counties. Then many times they don't have fuel. Genuinely so. During the killings in Masaka, a committee of parliament went and interacted with I think it was one of Osi Station, one of those regional films. And this guy was honest with them and said, look, I've got one car for most of this place, and many times it does not have fuel. So people call us saying, machete wielding men are here, and we cannot move. And I remember a minister coming out to the Minister for Security, Honorable Jim Owezi. He came out to castigate this police officer, in fact wanted to sanction him. It was until the public said, but the man is speaking the truth. There's just one truck in that whole region area, that specific one where the committee was. Many times it doesn't have fuel. And he said, now, with my little salary, should I be the one fueling this car when people call? And he said, genuinely, people call for help. I want to help, but how do I help? And Mwezi was saying he's making government look bad, as opposed to availing what is required. We've got to strengthen cybersecurity measures and digital forensic capabilities to combat online crime, which is increasing by the day. We've got to expand fire stations across the country to ensure a timely response to fire outbreaks, improve efficiency in passport issuance, border security, and national ID registration. Enhance rehabilitation programs in prisons to reduce recidivism and promote reintegration into society. Strengthen anti-corruption mechanisms within law enforcement agencies to eliminate bribery and misconduct. Promote community policing initiatives to foster better relations between law enforcement and citizens. Some of the community policing that happens today, you see one general dam leader going to talk bad about the opposition and to recruit people into NRM. That's not what policing, community policing should be. But the likes of General Damulira have interpreted it that way. You'll go to people, you come, we join this party, and work together. So to him, that's the brilliant idea of community policy. We've got to strengthen enforcement of disciplinary action against errant officers who violate the law in the conduct of their duties, especially those who brutalize the citizenry. Let me conclude this way. Our alternative budget priorities focus on investing in key sectors such as healthcare, education, agriculture, and infrastructure to drive inclusive development. Adequate funding for public hospitals, support for small-scale farmers, improvements in education, and investment in sustainable infrastructure are essential for building an economy that benefits all Ugandans. We advocate for a budget that centers on the people's needs, fostering a more just and prosperous Uganda. This kind of budget is achievable once we put people first and combat corruption, which is eating up the resources meant to deliver services to the citizenry. For as long as we keep losing over 10 trillion shillings a year, as per the IGG report, there is just no way, ladies and gentlemen, that we shall have resources to invest in these priority sectors. Those who steal taxpayers' money are promoted and pampered, as opposed to being locked up in jail and forced to return the stolen loot. We have all watched the debate regarding the Umeme concession that comes to an end today. Government entered into a bad deal with this company, like they normally do with many of these agreements they sign. Years ago, this deal was detrimental to the country, as they normally do with many other deals and agreements. Today, Umeme says government owes them 234 million US dollars. Government told Parliament that it owes 190 million US dollars. While the Auditor General says the figure is only 118 million dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what theft looks like. This, exactly. Then you have a figure, $234 million. Government is saying $190 million. Auditor General, who is part of government, is saying no, it is 118 million US dollars. Somebody wants to rip off the taxpayer along the way. There's no way this country can develop with such confusion. Because even the Auditor General's figure of 118 million US dollars, some of us are saying we want to scrutinize that. And that's what we told the presiding officer on that day. We said, you have told us you've received a report from the Auditor General saying the figure is 118 million US dollars. And you're asking us to pass it as Parliament. What are we passing? I am very sure even the presiding officer had not read that report. I am sure. They didn't know what the contents of that report were. And then you're saying, quickly, let's pass it so that we deal with this issue. Yes, we don't want the country to lose money, but what exactly are we passing? We protested, but our colleagues on the other side said, they have it. But are we sure of what the exact money is? Because even the Auditor General's reports, normally they are brought to Parliament, we scrutinize them. Because there can be gaps therein. Because now who should we believe? Somebody somewhere is not telling the true story regarding Umeme. And I can assure you we are going to dig up until we get to the bottom of the truth. So that taxpayers' money is not taken for a ride. I would like to implore us all as a country to say no to these machinations and get our country in order. As the opposition, let's continue to keep the government in check, even as we work hard to send it off so that Ugandans can have a government that is accountable to them and prioritizes their well-being. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As I leave the stage, I just want to appreciate colleagues with whom we do this work. I know Honorable Helen talked about the shadow cabinet. I want to very much appreciate members of the shadow cabinet. Thank you. I normally harass you, and I'm using the word harass in bold and underline so that we get to do our work. So that we have these alternatives in place. So I'm normally bothering you, please have fun with this, with the technical team and so on. So I want to appreciate all of you for all the work that you do put in. And the technical staff, those ones I harass a lot more. For your colleagues, sometimes I have to display myself. But I have to appreciate the technical team led by the director for all the hard work. We are going to work even harder. We have a small team, as you know. Because contracts ended, Parliament said there is no money to renew contracts of staff from the office of the leader of the opposition. I said, wow, but you're recruiting new people every day. Where did that money come from that cannot take care of these ones? That's the ridiculousness of politics. So, with a very small team, we work day and night to see to it that we produce this one, because it is important that Ugandans see this here is a credible government in waiting. So I want to appreciate you all. Our Shadow Finance Minister should have been here. He's out of town on some engagements, but I do appreciate him and the rest of us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me now invite an OB of this place. He was here quite briefly, but he was around. And his presence was felt. The leader of the National Unity Platform, the Honorable Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert, please come and speak to us.
Thank you very much. Our able leader of Parliamentary Front, my leader of opposition when I was here, Right Honorable Winnie Kiza, distinguished guests, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. I want to salute our parliamentary team for work very well done. I was listening both with gladness but also with anger as the leader of opposition was speaking to us. I've had the opportunity to quickly go through the write-ups of the alternative budget, and I was in real sense comparing the ideal and the real. That is definitely ideal. And if we do things that way, we can be able to revolutionize every sector in our country. But unfortunately, we have the real to grapple with. We have the reality to deal with here. Nothing encourages, like the theme of today, combating corruption, a sure way of effective service delivery. Yes, combating that corruption. And I'll quote one eminent leader that we have in this country, Mzee Mayengo Israel, who was speaking a few weeks ago. He said, and I agree with him, that back in the day, President Obote noted that the problem of Uganda and Africa generally is reduced into three things. That is poverty, that is ignorance, and disease. And he was spot on. Today, Mzee Mayengo reduced the problem in Uganda. It is no longer poverty, ignorance, and disease, but it is centrally corruption. Because corruption is the center of all this. I want to salute our parliamentary front for the continued fight. And ladies and gentlemen, indeed there's no better place to talk about corruption than here, the Parliament of Uganda, which has distinguished itself in recent days as the high temple of corruption. I hate to use those words, but if we are to deal with the problem, then understanding it and addressing it in reality is a first step. This Parliament has had the most outrageous scandals recently. In recent times, we've seen the Speaker of Parliament with impunity siphoning taxpayers' money. In recent days, we have seen this Parliament doing unprecedented things. We've seen in this Parliament the Speaker of Parliament and government ministers sharing iron sheets meant for the poorest of the poor in Uganda. It is in this Parliament that we've seen the leader of opposition rewarded before he works. It was in this parliament where we saw that so-called service award. And it is this parliament that provoked the conscience of even our young people. We all remember the young people of this nation getting up and deciding to have a march to parliament. Many of them were arrested, as you read in the newspapers, tortured, and even sodomized for daring to counter corruption. For those young people that were trying to make their way to parliament and failed, I thought that maybe today I could try to be their spokesperson, to be their mouthpiece, and say to you what those young people were not able to say. Friends, corruption, I think, has become cliche. It has become, corruption is too cool a name to give to what is being done. A while ago, the head of Transparency International defined corruption, and I agree with him, as the cold and calculated robbery of a people's future, of people's opportunities. And I agree, because it is corruption that has stolen the future of the people of Uganda. Many of you who are under 50 have seen that corruption has robbed all your youthful and useful days from you. Corruption has stolen the vision of Uganda from the people of Uganda. I could go on and on and on about corruption, since we Ugandans all know that our country ranks number 140 out of 180 countries, the most corrupt. That means we're only 40 countries shy from the corruption trophy. A situation where we lose almost half of the revenue collected in Uganda. That corruption should be, looked at as a corruption in crisis level. We are in trouble because of corruption. The Inspector General of Government, the current one, Bajeti, who we expect to most understand corruption, defined it, simplified it a few weeks ago in an online video, and I agree with her. She once again told us that we lose to the tune of 10 trillion. I believe it could be more to corruption. But again, she goes further down to us and tell us that out of the 45.9 million Ugandans, it is only 350,000 Ugandans that are in that circle. Now, these are not the people controlling the country or our economy. These are just a group of people that I would call enablers, including some of you members of parliament, including all the people that are being used. But again, she goes further to show us that a small group of people that are even 10% or less of the enablers, that is roughly 35,000 people. This is a small group of people that is milking the entire country, and we all know these are the people that have decided that our country is supposed to go down the drain. Let us imagine what 10 trillion can do. A little while ago, we were imagining what that money can do if corruption was stamped out. 10 trillion lost every year. Imagine what that money can do to our road network. Imagine what that money can do to our hospitals and health centers. Imagine if we set out to use that money to transform our schools. Unfortunately, that money goes to a few. So as we stand here, ladies and gentlemen, we should reflect on so many things that have been said. Otherwise, we'll continue saying it and saying it and saying it. Recently we lost one of Uganda's international journalists, Shaka said, and was quoted to have said that one of the biggest achievements of the Museveni regime is institutionalizing corruption. And that is true, because we all can realize that corruption is a currency in this regime. Corruption is used to reward the corrupt and to silence or even eliminate those that are fighting it. It is the sure way of General Museveni to hold on to power. And now we are at this parliament, I can even dare say that this our parliament has also been reduced. This our parliament, just like the Museveni regime, it attracts the worst of characters and corrupts the best. It is my hope and prayer that our leadership here will not be compromised like it was a while ago. So I want to implore all of you, friends, that you are supposed to be the voice of those people, the majority, that are overtaxed but receive zero or very limited services from the government. I want all of you to know that it is possible if you stand firm. It is hard to stand firm. Our leader of opposition said one time, and I agreed with him, that when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. I just want to assure you, friends, that for those of you who fight corruption, you will never fight alone. We, the people of Uganda, will stand with you. We will back you up. We will fight with you. And as we are taught, the people united cannot be defeated. You won't be defeated. Finally, friends, I also want to mention that corruption, on a close analysis, is but just a symptom of a bigger problem. And that problem is misrule, that problem is dictatorship, that problem is a rulership, not a leadership, a rulership that has no account, that does not feel obliged with the people and is not answerable to the people. Friends, when you see flies hovering over a mess, you don't just spray the flies, you remove the mess and the flies will go away. We need to remove this dictatorship and corruption will be history. Thank you very much for joining me.
We thank you so much, Mr. President, for your very elaborate speech. It has spoken so well to our budget, which is people-centered. Ours is actually people-centered, because if the government prioritizes a few, we are saying we should prioritize our people that we lead. When the leader of opposition talked about the country not being serious, or our government not being serious, I remember in Kalangala we got a cyclone wind, and most of our houses were displaced. People were displaced, people died, property was destroyed. We managed to get the Minister of Disaster Preparedness to get to Kalangala, but she was not prepared herself. The ministry was not prepared. They had nothing in stock for the people of Kalangala. So one wonders how serious this government is. So I was also wondering, because we are not serious at all. If we are ready, we as the opposition, I think we should take over government, because I think we're serious, because we have local leaders. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for your speech, and we're very much gratified. Honorable members and colleagues and invited guests, allow me also to recognize the presence of the President of UPC, Honorable Jimmy Akena, who just joined us. Thank you so much for coming. And Mr. Langa Christopher, the General Secretary Representative for the UPC. Thank you so much for coming. Some shadow ministers that I did not mention, some also just joined us. There's Honorable Jonathan Oduru, Justice and Constitutional Affairs is around. Honorable Chiaga Hilary, Arts and Culture. Honorable Mwada Kunyinji, Foreign Affairs. Honorable Timothy Batua, Health. Honorable Anna Deke Baju, Public Service. And we have Honorable Mayanja, Vice Chairperson Kosasi. Thank you so much for joining us. And those leaders who have just joined us, thank you so much for coming. We very much appreciate you. Allow me at this juncture to invite the one and only. This lady is one of our mentors. I have looked up to her and other women, of course, but she's a recent one. She's one of those people we look up to in politics, especially with the women. She's my sister because they say we look alike. When she comes here, you will notice. Allow me to invite the former leader of opposition, the Honorable Winnie Kiza. And I think we should give her a round of applause because she was such a very powerful and still a very powerful woman of this our generation. I thank you.
Thank you, MC. The leader of the opposition, together with your shadow cabinet, the leaders of the political parties who are here, and I recognize the leader of the National Unity Platform, honorable members of Parliament, and the staff of Parliament, leaders of the civil society organizations, members of the media, LOP, special thanks to you for this day. This is the day the Lord has made. We have to rejoice and be glad in it. Why do I say this? This day gives us, members of the opposition, the opportunity to answer the Nabanjas of this country. That the opposition has, from the time this country went into multi-party dispensation, been giving alternative policy statements, has been giving alternative policy options to the Ugandans. Many times I feel sad when the Nabanjas and their friends begin deceiving the Ugandans that what policies do they offer? What do they have? What alternatives do they offer? So I just want to remind them today that the office of the leader of the opposition from 2006 has been giving policy options, has been giving alternative statements. And so, Lord, thank you today that again you are bringing us here to let them know that if they are not reading, it has not been a problem. But we have been having compendiums of policy options. Thank you that the Ugandans are receiving from your office and the able members of Parliament who are here, who belong to the alternative government, the alternative budget. And I want to congratulate you, colleagues, for this milestone. Uganda is not a poor country like many people think, or like our leaders want us to believe. Uganda is a nation that has poor managers who manage a nation with a chaotic mentality. And because of that, they have made corruption a norm of managing our society, to the extent that corruption has been referred to as cooperation. And that is what the Honorable Chagulanyi was talking about, the president of the National Unity Platform, that corruption is kind of now a way of life in Uganda. Museveni's government has institutionalized it to that extent that when you are not corrupt, actually the system is likely to weed you out. You look alien when you are not corrupt in Museveni's government. And today, leader of the opposition, with the theme that we are running for this year, we want to tell all Ugandans that together we can fight this corruption and make Uganda a better place for all of us, where people with the taxes that they pay can see services getting closer to them. And yes, I know it can happen. The Auditor General's report of 2023-2024 alluded to the fact that over 316 billion is lost in the medical field due to corruption. And this is out of expired drugs. Can you imagine a country having expired drugs when Ugandans are dying because of lack of medical supplies in the countryside? Over 316 billion going to waste because of corruption. And we know that health nations are built by health populations. And so if you can just not even be mindful enough of a population that you need, would you really be worth it being called a leader? And I concur with what His Excellency Chagulanyi said, that it's misrule that is bringing us the far that we have gone. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we fight the mismanagers of our nation. I know that majority of us here went through thick and thin to get to your positions. Just the recent experience of Kawempe tells you where we are going. A lot of money wasted for people to make their decision. And that even when people have made their decision, you still waste a lot of taxpayers' money. You abuse people, you assault people, you insult people, you break people's ribs just because there is an election. What a shame for our leaders. But all this is due to corruption. You know the amount of money that was lost in Kawempe. People, instead of talking about the issues that affect the ordinary citizens, they went on abusing members of the opposition. They have no agenda. They have no agenda. If you have an agenda, why don't you give it to the people so that they can vote you? We know that Museveni's agenda is impoverishing the citizenry of Uganda and making sure that we all remain in this poverty, because it is this poverty that he uses to hold us hostage in our own countries. Can you imagine a country where levels of employment are very low, and that agriculture is the biggest employer of citizens of Uganda, but even agriculture, they still tamper with it? A report from the Ministry of Agriculture indicated that over 445 billion was wasted to corruption out of abuse and misuse of essential inputs in agriculture. And yet I thought that if there is any government that is worth being called a government, would have been so keen on ensuring that they provide water for production, they ensure that people who are involved in the agriculture subsector get the best of what they want. Because this is one of the most employers of our Ugandans, but they still swindle the money from the farmers. What a shame. Leader of opposition, thank you for giving us this opportunity today to let the country know that Uganda is not a poor country, and for Ugandans to understand that corruption has devastating effects on human capital development and social equity of our nation. So the better we fight it before all of us are consumed by this saga of corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I would not want to take you far because you all know what is happening. Much of the money that is wasted is our money. It's money that you and I pay in form of taxes. When they are wasting it, they don't want to let you know that it's your money. When I was still here as a member of parliament, actually towards the end of our term, Uganda gave a contract to a company which was going to do roads in Congo. I kept asking myself, how do we begin doing roads in Congo when our own roads are still very poor? It's like giving food to the neighbors when your own children are sleeping hungry. And I kept asking myself, yes, it could be that we are getting businesses from Congo. Yes, it could be that possibly we are chasing security. But doesn't it also concern us that these roads are some form of insecurity to our own countrymen and women? Some of the roads that we are supposed to be worked on, I saw a clip of tourists sleeping in the middle of my road, the one taking me to my home from Chikorongo to Bwera. Tourists are taking photos in the ditches. Ugandan roads are becoming tourist attraction sites because of the way they look. Not that they look well, not that really everybody is admiring them, but because of the pitfalls that we have. The potholes that we have are making our roads tourist centers. And then you stand here and you say, I'm a leader of a country, I've made your country look great, you've managed us for 40 years, and in 40 years, we still have dilapidated roads, we still have roads that can be used as graves. What a shame. And all this is due to corruption. So having a theme that talks about combating corruption as the only sure way to effective service delivery is a welcome idea. And I would like to equally call upon all of us here, stakeholders, Ugandans, let us make this our issue. Corruption hits all of us. I know that wherever you go, because of corruption, you are now the targets. People begin asking you, honorable, our roads, honorable, our roads, and yet you and I contribute to a central pool where we think that our managers, the managers of this nation, the so-called leaders at the higher level who control taxes, are supposed to answer to some of these concerns. But now it is you who is being asked why the roads are not made. And yet for you, you have done your duty. Continue shouting, continue making noise, continue bringing these issues out. Someday, we shall overcome. But what I know, just like His Excellency, the President of the National Unity Platform said, the only way of ensuring that these ills are done away with in our society is by changing leadership. Because everything else rests upon leadership. We may speak and speak until we change the leadership of this nation. There is nothing much we can do. The only thing is to work harder and ensure that we change leadership of the nation, we get there and give better service, quality service to the population of Uganda. And I think that's why we are here today to say that even when they don't believe us, we can do it. And we have shown them that for us, we are ready to fight and make Uganda a better place for everyone. Ugandans, you better begin thinking. It is you and me that suffer the corruption of President Museveni. It is still you and me that can get Museveni out of his office. It is your office that he has mismanaged. So let us work hard and we change leadership and the governance of this country so that Ugandans can enjoy their taxes and live in a country worth being called the Pearl of Africa. I thank you.
Thank you so much, the Honorable Winnie Chiza, our former leader of the opposition. Honorable members, colleagues, and our guests, allow me also to introduce to you the Honorable Betty Narima, Shadow Minister for Local Government. She also joined us. Honorable Flavia Nabagare, IPU. There is Honorable Karwanga, Chams, Commonwealth Parliament. Thank you so much for coming. I think this just allow me to introduce to you one Miss Agnes Tirabo. She is the CEO of, she's the Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance. She has represented all the CSOs and she's going to give us a brief speech about our budget for today. And then I'll give you the next program after that. I thank you so much. Honorable members and colleagues, there is a cup of tea. If you want to use some, refreshment, please have a cup of tea. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, Honorable. The Leader of Opposition, Honorable Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Agnes Kirabo is my name. I'm a civil society leader in this country, and I take this opportunity with delight, humility, and honor to make a statement on this memorable day of the presentation of the alternative budget for the financial year 2025-2026. It is my first time here, and I've had my sister, Honorable Winkiza, laughing. Yes, it is my first time here, and if I mess up with the protocol, please bear with me. That is one area that I'm very poor at. Last week, personally, I was in Paris, where global leaders met, and on one thing, combating malnutrition. About $27 billion were committed to be invested in fighting malnutrition. While I was there, colleagues of mine from civil society were here in Parliament having discussions over issues that we hold pertinent, that we think should form priorities if we are to better the lives of the people of Uganda using the most critical policy tool in the country, which is the national budget, a tool that determines the haves and the have-nots, a tool that directs where investments should be made and where results should be realized. Right, Honorable Leader of Opposition, we are delighted that we are invited as civil society to share our views, and we feel it is our civic and moral duty to seize every moment and see that the voices of the people are heard. I'm quite knowledgeable on a number of things that you have alluded to in your presentation, but I'm only an expert in one area, that is agriculture and food security, and of course malnutrition. Right, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Honorable Leaders here, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of which we are discussing today is combating corruption. And we are dealing with this theme focusing on the budget tool. Corruption does not happen at the exit end. It actually starts at the beginning, and this is at planning. Where we choose to put our money determines how we are going to use our money and defines who is going to benefit from the plans where we have decided to allocate our resources. You are at liberty to plan and allocate resources where they can easily be taken, or you also are at liberty to allocate resources where you're going to include almost everybody in the society. I wish to draw your attention, honorable leaders, to only one single program in the National Development Plan, because as a country we took a program approach, and this is the approach we focus on allocating our resources. The agro-industrialization program, what a wonderful concept. If you're not in production, then you are at the higher levels of this particular program, up to the levels of industrialization. The ministerial policy statements revealed to us that we are very candid and we are instead reducing the budget allocation to this particular program. Honorables, before we went into the program approach and we are budgeting according to sectors, the sector of agriculture had hit $1 trillion. And now we are talking about a program that brings together several other ministries, departments, and agencies, and it is dropping from 1.6 to now 1.3. And this is the sector that actually every person can engage in. It is a sector not only to feed us, it is a sector to feed our industries, it is a sector to feed our exports, it is a sector for peace and security, tranquility and stability, because a hungry man, perhaps a woman also, is an hungry one. We have decided in the next financial year to instead reduce the allocation. Every single reduction taken in a program or a sector that involves many people is a decision of exclusion. It is a decision of leaving others behind, and I also do believe it is a form of corruption. I will not leave this stage without appreciating that when we got in here, the first thing after being shown where to sit, I was invited to a table to enjoy a breakfast. In my own organization, we believe in food first and everything later. Honorable members in this house, I speak to you this morning with a heavy heart that in a country of plenty, we are staying in our neighborhoods, in our societies, in our families, with close to 50% of the population that never had a meal yesterday, despite it being Eid Day. Our state of food insecurity as Uganda, by the Global Hunger Index, is characterized as serious. What a form of corruption. Corruption is not about theft of resources, but also neglect of the basic to humanity. So if 50% of the population are seriously under food insecure in a country of plenty, then it is nothing but immoral. We shall be held accountable by close to 50% of the children in Chigezi and in Karamoja that shall never live to their full potential because government statistics are telling us they are stunted. The description and definition of stunting is no longer short by age because some people are just genetically not advantaged like me. But when we are talking about stunting, we are talking about stuntedness of the brains. And these children are subject of disease. These children do not perform in school well. These children shall never innovate, shall never live to their full potential. Many of the things that Honorable Senyen you've been talking about may be, and I believe surely, we have government statistics that indicated to us that 54% of all adults in Uganda suffered stunting while they are young. And I'm happy they are not in this room. But for every 10, 6 suffered stunting. How much are you expecting from such a population? Therefore, with a food insecure society, with an agro-industrialization program, which is the hope to engage people to derive a livelihood, only being supported by a tune of 24% by government resources and the rest by externals, whereas one coughs and everybody catches a cold. People define the terms under which we should use their money, and for our own money, we are only giving agro-industrialization 24%. Then how much are we expecting? Without food security being characterized as serious, with 26% of the children national average living not to their full potential, with 60% of our children today in school, and even the whole week and the whole term, shall never have a meal in school. What kind of society are we presiding over? It is my humble prayer that if only we could put our resources to create an environment for every people to thrive, to do something and they derive a livelihood, and they have a decent meal, and they live to their full potential, then the rest shall fall in position. Because I believe hunger and malnutrition in a country of plenty like Uganda is immoral. But ending hunger and malnutrition during our time, it is possible, and yes, we can. I submit.
Thank you so much, Ms. Agnes Chirabo, for very well representing the CSOs. And honorable members, colleagues, and our guests around today, that marks the end of our presentations. Today, we said we were going to have a short and brief presentation about alternative budget priorities for the financial year 2025-2026, and that's it. Allow me now, inform you that we are going to have the party presidents around launch the alternative budget booklet, and after we shall have a picture of them, and then a picture of the shadow cabinet and all the members of parliament present, and we call it a day. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, the President of the National Unity Platform, the Honorable Junior Kena, UPC President, the Honorable Elias Lukwago, the President of the PPF, the Honorable Saddam Gaida, PPP, the Honorable Haj Mohammed Chibirige, Jema, the Honorable Luchamzi. Please join and let us have the launch of the booklet, and then we will have a picture. Thank you.
Abantu bayimirira obwambujikiriza beera bonna.
Aya okola mkwano.
The party presidents are moving to the flag area, led by the leader of the opposition, the right honorable Johnson. Shadow cabinet members, let's have a picture. Shadow cabinet ministers, go to the flag area, please. Photo
But it's okay. I don't know why.
Ate side y'ekyengo yali.
It's okay, you can start.
And the others?
Yes? And others?
Yes.
Other MPs.
Okay.
We are here waiting, man. MPs.
Agala bafuula abataliiwo.
No, I think we...
The members of parliament, please, let's just enjoy the picture. All of us. Okay, all of us will have the Thank you so much for that. We have lunch. Yeah, honorable members and colleagues, we have lunch.
Togenda kubeera na live naye nkwatira mpaka wabweru. Byonna tokinkola ssebo. Bwerabayo abantu abali kubulira ku bijayanzi. Bantu bangi. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Kati tugenda wabweru. Olutalo nga luwedde. Omwami wange akikubye leero 59. Guys, omwami wange ali ku YouTube naye akozesa Bobby Giant. You can also go there and subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Please, let's proceed to the stairs. The parliamentary stairs for this picture. And then there is lunch. Lunch for members of parliament. And then invited guests to
Labayo. Katira kwa kamera. Abajja naye agambye mbu ati kwata wabweru live. Nzate manyi.
Mpaka nga bakuganye oba omanya oli best
Tebajja. Kama kati banoneko kati. namukubyeyo bati akabasente yajja Masaka banaye munyanjulire muberenga
Mwetuli?
mwe muli kale hono nsolooza kavuga gaali Hi. Amagalo bancho Chaplain Center. Mama, sentito itu. Waduh, akan aku bosan. Pacar dia. Yes, bulungi tulaba omukulembeze w'eggwanga bamaliriza era kati ekigenda maaso okufuna ekifaananyi ekyawamu eky'ababaka ba paalamenti tosobola
kuba waka mpaka kuwulira bubi manyi simwangu ekifaananyi nakujamu ekkala
Kamera yo People power, one Uganda, one people, free Dr. Besigye, free all political prisoners, 7 must fall. Now,
Today one sila sa mbele one sila. Today mistake. Today one. Mume mulimide wagulu. Musembere badde wansi. No, mwe mlemedde wano mbagala mudde no mwe mudde no basikira. Mwagala.
Okay, tuli ready. Okay, sina wema. Mana tuli ready.
Era budget ya muyekana ki.
So olunaku olwaleero twanjudde alternative budget ffe nga ab'oludda oluvuganya gavumenti ffe gye tulaba nti yerina okukolera bannansi sente zirina kusaasaanyibwa zitya era nga theme omulamuwa ogwaffe gugamba nti combating corruption the sure way to effective service delivery nti bwe tuba twagala okubeera n'obuweereza obwannamaddala eri bannayuganda tulina kulwanyisa nguzi kubanga sente mpitirivu ezibbibwa mu byekiyaaye bitongole ebyenjawulo zino zi Attack Sugar, Day by Farmer, Inspire Coffee Africa, Factory, Rock Construction, Lubowa Hospital n'ebirala tulina obubbi obw'ekiko obw'enjawulo. Kati tugamba nti bwe tuba tunaabeera n'obuweereza obulungi bannayuganda bagende mu malwaliro nga wali eddagala, amasomero ga UP gabeere nga gakola, enguudo zikolebwe, abavubuka bafune ku mirimu, factories n'ebirala, tulina kulwanyisa nguzi awo wali obuzibu. Ebiseera bingi muwulira abakungu mu gavumenti nga bagamba nti twalagadde okukola kino oba kiri naye sente tezimala. Ffe ab'omu opposition tugamba nti sente ezo bweziri era zimalira ddala kubanga bannayuganda bawa omusolo ate sente mpitirivu naye sente ezo zibbibwa. Twogendere ku classified budget nga tugamba nti obutabaliko obwo obuteekebwa mu classified budget kikyamu. Owa buli ggwanga libeera ne classified expenditure naye kati eyaffe wano e Uganda tetegeerekeka mpitirivu ate nga ne bwe tugenda nti kakati South Sudan kubadde ffe twakiwakanya naye nabazze nga basaba budget ey'enjawulo kati no classified expenditure sente zikozesebwa ki ezo nazo zibbibwa bubbibwa. Kati tugamba nti Uganda bw'eneeba ey'okutereera Uganda n'afuna services ezitegeerekeka tulina kulwanyisa nguzi. Kati awo tutadde essira era nga tugenda kusaba bannayuganda tusome, tugenda gisharinga ne ku links ne social media naki naye n'okusingira ddala bannaffe abali mu gavumenti tusome alternative budget yaffe eno kubanga batera okugamba nti ffe nga opposition tuwakanya buwakanya tetuwaayo alternative views, alternative policies ez'enjawulo. Kati tubasaba musome ebintu bino ate muleme biwakanya just olwokubanga bivudde muffe ab'opposition naye mulabe ekirungi ekiri omwo kubanga omwaka guno ekyenjawulo ekiriwo nti twebuuziza ku bibiina ebyenjawulo ebituwa endowooza zaabwe kipo kye balaba ekyalibadde mu bajeti yaffe. Tetwebuuza ku bibiina ebyobwannakyewa civil society organizations nabo ne batuwa endowooza zaabwe okulaba nti tuziteekamu. Kati katusuubire nti bannansi banaasoma newankubadde weewaawe neyinza obutateekebwa mu nkola naye twagala bannansi balabe nti wano wetwalibadde tutambulira oba oli awo singa ffe abali mu kulembeze yenkanawo tonnagiso
tokuba kutta okubya kutta
malaba fwe bajubisa
kagenda ebisinga Senyonyi abyogedde era byebirowoozo byaffe mpozi kyenyinza okwongerako nti bannayuganda kikulu ne bamanya twakula President Milton Obote yannyonnyola ku buzibu bwa Uganda nga bwetolera ku bwavu mutamanya n'endwadde era ne tukula nga bwe tulwanyisa naye gye buvuddeko myezi mitono egiyise nze Israel Mayengo yannyonnyodde ekizibu kya Uganda era ffenna sabatukanye naye yannyonnyodde nti ekizibu kya Uganda kakyetondera buli ake na bubbi. Ekigambo corruption twakirongoosa ne kikola fashionable, naye singa tukinyonnyola abantu ne tubalaga nkitegeeza bubbi buli ake, okubbako abantu ebiseera byabwe by'omu maaso kikulu nnyo nnyo nnyo, abantu ne bamanya ne balyoka bayimuka ne balwanyisa ekintu kye bamanyi. Corruption ekyennaku nti ge galinga amafuta agatambuza gavumenti ya Mwai Museveni. Corruption ali institutionalized oba nakyo kitongole ekikola ku nguzi. Akozesa corruption okusiba abo bayagala bamukolere, era kizibu nnyo okunoonyereza mu gavumenti ya Mwai Museveni nga tewali muntu alina corruption scandal. Corruption gyakozeseza okuwamba eno parliament. No parliament epaati yayo esinga obunene kyafuuka kyekwekero ky'ababbi nga bakulemberwa agikulira mukyala Anita. Eno parliament ne corruption ali mu parliament wakozeseza okukorruptinga n'abakulembeze abaali abalungi abaali abeesigwa. So bannayuganda balina okulwanyisa obulyako obwo, naye okulwanyisa obulyake kubanga kulwanyisa bubonero bwa bulwadde oba symptom, naye ng'ekirwadde kyennyini kibira ddala ku bukulembeze obutali accountable, obukulembeze obutafa ku bantu wabula nga baagala kweremeza mu buyinza. Era tulina okugyawo obukulembeze obwo nga bukulembera Mwai Museveni yasinga okubeera corrupt. Abantu bonna abali corrupt abadifendinga abaprotectinga nga tetugyeewo Museveni ekyabonaabona bakyatupa nnyo. Ekisemberayo ddala ekizibu ekyo bakinyonnyodde nga kinyonnyola ye kaliisoliiso wa gavumenti mukyala Bajeti Kamya. Njagala nnyo okubiriza bannayuganda bagende banoonye kavidiyo ako katono dakika 3-5 mukyala Bajeti Kamya ng'annyonnyola ekizibu kya corruption oba ekyobulyake ekiriwo, ng'akulaga nti Uganda erimu miliyoni z'abantu 45 n'obutundutundu 9 zikunuukiriza 46, naye nga obugagga bw'eggwanga bubbibwa abantu abatono abatasukka 3.5 ng'ate bakozesa aba enablers abatasukka 35. So nga bannayuganda balina okusituka ne balaba engeri gye bakombatingamu oba gye balwanyisamu bano abantu abatono abatufudde abaddu mu nsi yaffe nga bakozesa obulyake.
Abalwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi balwana ne boogera ku nsonga zino empaawo kikolebwa kino, olinawo obakubiriza n'obagamba tebakowa basigale nga balemerako kubayingirira okukkisobozesa musaba ku Uganda.
Right Honorable Joel Ssenyenje buvuddeko yatugamba era nange nzikanya naye nti when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. Olwanyisa obulyake n'obulyake bujja kulwanyisa. Ensonga lwaki abasinga okulwanyisa obulyake wano babalumbagana ne mu constituency zaabwe, teweewuunya bituuka ku Ssekikubo, teweewuunya bituuka ku Ssenyonyi n'abalala bwe batyo. So tubazaamu amaanyi ne tubagamba obulyake n'abalwanyisa ffe bannayuganda tujja kuyimirira nabo tubawagiridde bagwamu maanyi balwane kubanga bamanyi nti amateeka n'abalonzi bali kusaidia.
Akasembero ddala obuli bw'enguzi okulwanyisa corruption kirina kuva mu bakulembeze bokka bavunaanyizibwa bwa buli ba oluusi bakirekera abakulembeze bokka ne bagamba musireze naye waliwo kino kikolebwa.
Wadde obuvunanyizibwa bw'abantu bonna naye abakulembeze balondobwamu okulembera abantu babalonda. Mwami Ssenyonyi tatuyamba buyambi okulwanyisa enguzi, naye twamulonda abantu b'e Nakawa ne tumusindika. Tuli basanyufu tetwamusindika okukola kyali mu kukola. So abakulembeze balina okulemberamu, abalonzi babakube.
Okay, omulabi omulungi ali ow'omukisa embeera bweti bweri omukulembeze w'eggwanga maliriza era kati kudda waka. Kwati oyagala kifaananyi kwata wano gino nkwatira njagala kuba kifaananyi ndowooza olaba alano kyankola musa akubeeremu awo alano mubeeremu ogenda kwesimbawo ogenda kwesimbawo wandi honorable kikubye it's okay honorable it's okay ekifaananyi ekyo kinanyuma nga genda honorable
masimu mangi onsanyusa mukola nnyo mujja kiwese temuzirya mweka temwagala gaba sente
tugabe ku mirimu
mugabe ndi temwagala gaba sente mwagala okuyawe mweka mukyabonaabona nnyo giant mugaba sente eyampa wadde ne ku sente z'ebifaananyi nenalukoola ngamba nkutegedde nkumanyi
nalukola ebizibu byalina ngenda bikugamba nga siri live so kukwate wano
nesinto oyagala zirya weka bino anange bakikola budde bugenzi banange naba byonkwasizza mukama katonda bula tripod obiteeka wano ogende maama bimenyeka nomenyeka mukama katonda maama nemuli ku kyekyo Honorable Kayondo ngenda kunoonya bula tusikuleka bakamaze
kakuba yakamuweka
aludde okumpa ku sente siyagala mukuba
kufaki omusajja wange yuna muleke
New Haven Tents, your ultimate shelter solution. Are you looking for high quality tents and covers? New Haven Tents has got you covered. We specialize in durable, stylish, and weather-resistant solutions for all your needs. Our products include conference tents, perfect for corporate events, weddings, and large gatherings. Carports and car covers protects your vehicles from sun, rain, and dust. Camping tents, strong and comfortable for your outdoor adventures. We have imported and ones made here in Uganda in all sizes. Tamplins or amatundubali in large, medium, and small size. Coverings or canopies or ebitimba in all percentages and different colors. Waterproof covers, ebivera in all sizes. Plastic chairs and tables available in round and rectangular shapes. We offer affordable prices and customized options. Visit us today at Kingsway Plaza, former Container Village, shop number G4, or call us on 0776 797863 or 0758 196624. You can also follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, New Haven Tents, and on TikTok, New Haven Tents. Haven Tents, quality shelter for every occasion.